There are three ways in which districts provide internship opportunities to high school students: community classroom, exploratory work experience, or district model. Education Code and Title V provide the requirements to establish an exploratory work experience program. Chino Hills High School provides career pathway students with the opportunity to participate in internships through this model. These modules are designed to provide the viewer with the information needed to establish and operate a successful program, which meets the needs of career pathway students.
Establishing a CTE work experience program involves a number of steps. The first thing you would want to do is to get the guide, the California Department of Education Work Experience Education Guide, which explains all these steps in a wonderful manual. Practically, you'd want to find a passionate teacher interested in career education that has a secondary credential and 2 years of occupational experience. Then you would want to adopt a curriculum. Mine will be linked to this program, but there are also other curriculums available from other school districts. You'd need to prepare a district plan, have that district plan approved by the school board, submit it to the state of California, where the Department of Education will review it and call you for revisions if necessary. It's an easy process, but it takes several months to get completed. When establishing a career technical education work experience program, you want to get well acquainted with the Ed codes 51760 to 55169 and other guidelines like the Career Readiness Initiative, the Model Curriculum Standards, and the Work Experience Education webpage at the CDE. After knowing those, you want to get well acquainted with your risk manager in your district. They will help you decide how involved the process and procedure of recruiting mentors needs to be, if you can go with the simple process of a training agreement and a volunteer work permit, or if, like some districts, you have to have a lengthy affiliation agreement or MOUs. The qualifications for someone to be a career technical education work experience coordinator is they need to have 2 years of occupational experience outside of education. They need to be interested and passionate about learning child labor code and enforcing child labor laws in the workforce. They become the eyes and ears of the labor commissioner, and they also become an assistant to core teachers in developing career and job readiness lessons in the classroom. Okay, in beginning developing work experience sites for volunteers, you start with what is the pathways, figuring out what are the careers in your community related to those pathways and researching them. Sometimes it takes cold calling and setting up an appointment. Sometimes it's just pounding the pavement. Often it's attending the Chamber of Commerce or other civic organizations. And one of the best places I've been able to find wonderful internships is by going to parent meetings, whatever parent meetings happening at my site, and saying, I'm looking for an internship site in geriatric medicine. Does anybody have a family member or an interest in a business related to what a student is looking for? Parents love to volunteer to mentor other people's children, particularly when their child is not following in their footsteps. That's been my greatest success. What are employers concerned about? They want to know who is going to cover the workers' compensation liability, which in some cases, some employers already have volunteer programs for minors, and so they have their own policy. Many private practices, small businesses, and even our community hospital doesn't have insurance for volunteers that are under the age of 18. So the school district, through the volunteer work permit, covers the liability insurance. Other concerns they have is, what am I going to do if this kid doesn't behave? I assure them that the students, for the most part, have been trained, are going to be our superstars of the academy, and are going to behave and learn well. But every so often, we make a mistake. A student acts in a different way in the world of work than you've seen in the classroom. So we have a 3 strikes policy. First, just like any employer would give their regular employee, students receive a warning. Then they receive a write-up, in which I then come in and have a meeting with their supervisor and the student. And on the third violation of any of the policies, they are let go. What labor laws do the employers need to know? They need to know that these students, even though volunteers, still come under the same hours for breaks and hours that they can work, so they can't work after 10 p.m. at night. They can serve 8 hours on the weekend, but only 4 hours after school. And they need to know what hazards they can't be exposed to. Since many of our industries, for example, health science or engineering, have a lot of those hazards, it's very important for the coordinator to go through each individual one of them with the employer and with the students in the orientation in the classroom and with the students at the orientation at the work site. Once the program is approved by the state of California and you can start recruiting mentor sites, you need to also start advertising for students. The best way, of course, is through their classes that are related to the academy and those teachers encouraging them to sign up, talking about the capstone, the importance of being in an internship and how it affects their resume and their college applications. Then I put out flyers around the school. Each of our pathways has a club related to it, so I go and speak to those clubs. They all have a social media site, so they will put up ads. Again, parent meetings are very important. Get your word out wherever you can go. And then through their individual counselors who already know what their pathway and their career goals are. Once students have expressed an interest, I first give them a statement of commitment. I want to know that regardless of where they want to go to serve, that they are committed to at least 6 hours a week, that they will be in class every week, that they have transportation, that they're going to uphold the values of our school and of their family, and that they're not going to drop out mid-semester. So the statement of commitment goes home with the application and the students being told, if you can't abide by the statement of commitment, don't bother filling out the application. If they get through the statement of commitment, they indicate on the application one of the regular places that we have for students to serve that they'd like to serve in, or a place of their choice. For example, I have AVID students that I create internships for. They have a variety of career interests, and so sometimes they're things I really have to search and figure out for them. This semester it was fashion designer, and another one was equine vet. But every semester there's unique things that I have to really search hard and ride to find. We interview the students. First, I interview each of them when they turn in their application. Then, depending on the place that they're going to serve, for example, the hospital where multiple students can serve, and it's quite a competitive internship for students to get into, we have a team that evaluates them, so they learn what it would be like to be in a group interview. And that's fun, and we take, of course, the top 16 out of that group interview. Also, often the mentor sites would like the students to come interview there, and they want to select their own interns. So I'll send 4 or 5 that I think are a match, and the facility says they'll take 2, but after they meet the students, they often find ways to take all of them. So there's a variety of ways. Again, it has to do with their career passion and their interest. Remember, this whole thing is about them exploring their future. Sometimes my heart gets broken because they've worked 16 weeks in the hospital that they thought they wanted to work in the rest of their life. And they come back at the end and they say, I'm no longer going into medicine. I can't stand sick people. I used to get really broken up over that, but now I realize that's the whole point of this program, is that they don't go on to college and spend 9 years before they figure out they don't like sick people, or they don't like little children, or they don't like being in an office all day. Engaging parents in this program is extremely important because often they are not well versed in how much time it's going to take or what an inconvenience it might be to take the student, drop them off and pick them up, or how it might affect their weekends. So we start with the statement of commitment, making sure the parents and the student buy into all of the commitments. Parents also have to sign on the application where it talks about transportation. and that they will be reliable in getting there to pick up their student on time. Because we've had several occasions where mentors want to go home to their families and the teenager is sitting on the curb waiting for their parents. So I have also orientation meetings with the parents and the students where I explain all the expectations for the program, for the learning. At the end of the general part of the orientation, I let most of the parents and students go and keep all of those students that are going into medical facilities and their parents. Because as I've done this over the years, I've learned many things that I never expected that they would be exposed to. Almost every semester something new happens. This semester it was a student at the hospital, only been there for an hour, where the EMT says, come here, help me. I need you to help me change this patient's clothes. But he failed to mention when he opened the curtain that the woman had passed away 45 minutes earlier, or what the student was going to see. I now know that I need to explain that to students and parents in advance. In the first year I did it, I had a student that messaged me on my Remind app, Mrs. Ziegler, they want me to help this man change his gown. And I said, yes, that was a skill you practiced in your allied health class. And she said, but he's naked. Parents and students need to realize that when they're going to serve in the hospital, they're going to see death, they're going to see nakedness, and there's going to be a lot of drama that they can't communicate at home due to HIPAA regulations. And so I ask parents if they still want their student to do it, and sometimes they don't. And most often they're enthusiastic and say, let them try it. Once students are placed and they've completed their orientation and they start on the job, students must be visited at least twice a semester per the training agreement designed by the state of California. This means that students must be visited and evaluated somewhere between the 8th and 10th week, and again near the end of the semester. I, however, found that I must visit them many more times. First, I visit the mentor before setting up the training agreement, where we individually agree on what the training agreement is for that facility. We also design skills and task sheets that the students and their mentors will use, because often I'm setting this program up with an administrator, but the students are actually being mentored by other workers in the facility. Once those are set up and the students have gone through the site orientation, I go out and visit them in the first week to see how comfortable they're doing and to encourage the mentors. I need to remind those mentors that this is going to be the workforce taking care of us in our old age. I encourage them, I write them thank you notes. The students also write them thank you notes. And I also go out and visit anytime there is a concern. So if I have a supervisor write me, the student is chronically tardy, I will go sit there and wait and time them, and then we'll have counsel. Sometimes I have to go meet with the parent in the parking lot. So while the requirement is to visit twice, I do believe you have to visit before it starts, in the first week when the students start working, and at least twice through the semester. Preparing students in the classroom is essential. In the first several weeks, you want to teach them how to give proper introductions, have their 30-second elevator speech for every adult or professional they meet along the way, how to have good eye contact, how to shake hands. Most importantly, what the word initiative means and how what they get out of this program is about what they give, how they need to ask questions, how they need to ask for more to do, how they need to explore equipment. You need to teach them some basic communication skills. Texting has taken a lot away from that. How to network, what the labor laws are and how they need to remain safe on the job. In some cases, you have to teach them HIPAA regulations, although in many facilities they'll have a training and testing on that also. I make them journal so that they are telling me each week how they've learned, not what they've done. So I want to know, what did they learn, equipment, vocabulary, process, procedures. So weekly, at the end of their week's shift, they send me an email by 10 o'clock on Sunday night. And they also need to know how to communicate to me when there's a concern, when there's a problem. And we can have two-way communication through the Remind app on their phones. They don't have my phone number, but we have an account. What does a weekly class schedule look like? In some districts, they will work in their plan that students will attend the class every day for the first 3 weeks. And then after that, they will attend only once a week for the instruction because they'll now be out on their job site. We prepare our students semester before, so they start the first week of school coming once a week. And the class is structured around, first, all of the liability issues. So we talk about all the forms, all of the processes and procedures, how to communicate with me, and what are the expectations. Following that, there's some kind of lesson related to work-based learning, career education, or industry-specific skills. Of course, for regular work experience or the general work experience class and the work-based learning students, if you had a combo class, the first few weeks would be a lesson on safety, a lesson on labor laws, a lesson on sexual harassment, and a lesson on what to do, like work ethics, responsibilities, initiative, things that they are going to be evaluated on. The students will get evaluated twice. Sometimes they don't even know what some of the words on the evaluations mean. After the first 6 weeks where all students are learning the same things, students in the general work experience class often go into financial management issues, where students in the industry-related classes go into lessons on general soft skills, career exploration, and industry-specific lessons. At the beginning of each semester, students have to have 2 or 3 forms, depending on your district and their guidelines, completed for each of the internships. The one that's required for every student for every facility is the training agreement. You can find this in the Career Education Guide and on the Work Experience Education website and on the COWE website. These can be modified if you want to change a few things on the training agreement, like I put the hours that the students have to serve every semester. It's signed by the parents, the students, the supervisor, and by the teacher, and this is the agreement that you work with all semester long. Students also need a volunteer work permit if the district is covering the workers' comp liability insurance. And so if the Department of Labor happens to come visit your site, the paid and the non-paid students all have a work permit. My district requires a hold harmless agreement, so while we will cover the workers' comp if a student gets injured, it does prevent parents from suing us beyond that coverage. It's the same form that's used for kids going on a field trip, but again, work with your risk manager to figure out what is the best practices for your district. Of course, running this kind of program comes with several challenges. It is very time-consuming, and there is important record keeping to be taken. Things happen on the internship sites that are unpredictable, that you didn't prepare the students for, but become great learning opportunities. Having funds to maintain professional etiquette, writing thank you notes, taking out thank you gifts, and making the students badges are always a challenge for me in finding the funding. Conflicts on the job, students getting injured, and parents and students flaking out in the middle of the semester are some of the challenges that I faced. And each semester, I talk about those in hopes to avoid them for the next semester. It just takes a lot of communication and working in the professional realm. The greatest part of this program is all of the successes that students find. Some of my students have been offered paid jobs at the end of their positions. They haven't often taken them because their parents say, "You've been gone so long, I'd like to see you before you go to college." They've discovered new careers they never knew existed. They've made great connections with professionals who help them guide them to college, help them find scholarship money, or even sponsor them in some cases. And then the individual successes of the kids. The student that saves a puppy in the lobby of the vet office giving it CPR. The students who worked at this facility and got their names published in the magazine for 3 months. Being valuable contributors to our community. Students that step up and go beyond their day. A student that I had in the summer at the hospital was assigned to an Alzheimer's patient that was causing disruption in the emergency room. He began to think she was his granddaughter, and there was so much going on in the emergency room, she ended up staying 2 hours beyond her scheduled session to keep him calm and let him believe that he was her granddaughter until his family was able to get there. I have many of those students that have become the calming force with others. We have students that step up in the strangest ways. Students that have worked at a retirement facility discovered that patients are relaxed more if they have their own music. So they raised money and bought iPods and recorded each person's special music for them in that facility. I've had kids that come back and mentor other students, or now 3 years down the line in college, are sponsoring students to come on tours at their colleges. All of the things that have to do with discovering new career opportunities are the greatest opportunities of this program.
To be honest, I was very reluctant to have high school students come in. We'd only had college students in the past. And I met one student and I was extremely impressed. And actually we got so much more from the high school students than we ever expected. And one of the things that I found was that they were very eager to please and to really prove themselves. They didn't come in with attitudes, they were here to learn. And we were very excited to have them. We'd have them again. Primarily, they were interested in the online marketing. And so they were able to design ads. They were able to work directly with our editor, and she would give them assignments every time that they would come in. What I found very interesting is that the first 2 weeks, they worked directly with her. But after 2 weeks, she told me, was showing me what they had turned in. I said, they're not working fast enough. You need to give them more. And she thought that they were working, quite at the speed that they should be. And it didn't occur to me to the second week, they were only coming in 2 days. I was basing it on a 5-day period, but the following week they just turned it and they did a great job. I think they're going to get so much more than they could ever expect. I think if they put a little time into the kids and really explain why they're doing what they're doing and not just give them assignments. I've known other people that have had interns come in and just do the work they don't want to do. That's not what this is about. I felt that it was important to give them exposure and have them make sure that they had something that they felt good about and that they learned from the experience. So if you put a little time into them, they'll give you so much more back.